I've been thinking a lot about this interview since we recorded it last week, and I've been following Steve since he got started. At first, when they launched the DGen network, I was honestly like, who the hell are these guys? I was very territorial back then, a sentiment that I'm grateful didn't last too long. Over time, I've come to really admire Steve. He's relentless. He's always working, hustling, looking for something new and fresh to work on. I didn't know what to expect when I had him on the show. We'd never really spoken outside of a few DMs. But damn, I was impressed. He has so much energy for the space, despite my constant narrative of kind of gloom and doom the last couple months. I loved hearing his stories, from building his first website in the 6th grade that was just a bunch of weird riddles, to spending the DGen network's mint money on a secret guy who gets access to allow lists. Steve, in my opinion, is a major player in the space, and I highly recommend you give him a follow. But first, listen to my interview with the man who is signed to Penguin Publishing to write a book about Web3, Steve NFT Bark. What's up, everyone? It's LG Doucette, and you're listening to The First Mint, a podcast about Web3, business, and sports. Before we get to the show, a word from our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by Evaluate.xyz, a safe and easy way to meet other NFT collectors, negotiate deals, and swap your moments live. Looking to expand your Top Shot All Day and Strike collection without spending your Dapper balance? With Evaluate, you can pair up with trading partners in seconds and swap your existing moments for new ones in secure trading lobbies. The fastest and easiest way to trade NFTs. Visit Evaluate.xyz today to start swapping moments with other collectors. Nothing on today's show should be considered financial or trading advice of any kind. Please do your own thorough research and make your own trading decisions. This is not advice. Ladies and gentlemen of the First Mints, I have a peer, a colleague from the industry on the show today, a fellow podcaster, a fellow Spaces host, and apparently a fellow former agency brand marketing person, Steve NFT Bark. Dude, what's going on, man? I feel like this kind of like this is like a crossover episode. You know what I mean? Where it's like people's, I don't know what kind of things crossover. Superheroes? We're not superheroes. That's too much. Sitcom crossover.
I think that's fair. That's a good
yeah.
analogy. Honestly, like, this is like something I'm super stoked. I mean, for me, if anything represents like the crazy, wonderful, weird summer of 2021, it's actually the First Mint's interview. I'm sure you remember this, with ZenFT, when the bonsai people use some weird auto-tune on the show and you're trying to ask them serious questions. And I'm like, that is summer of 2021 encapsulated. So like, I'm stoked to be here. I remember that to this day.
Oh, that is one of the most classic moments, man, where I was, it was like, because the thing is, you have to remember, Steve, is like, then it was like, everybody's like, what are we going to do after Top Shot? Because Top Shot's cooling off, new things coming out, there's apes. Here's Josh Ong, talk about apes, and it's like, okay, what else? And we're like, okay, now it's bonsai trees. Let's all go get the bonsai trees. And I was like, guys, you got to come on the show. Like, and we had I think like the week before we had Gutter Cats, like Mitch from Gutter Cats come on and was like, who's the Gutter Cats? And we're like, here's the guy. And then it was like, let's get the bonsai people next. And we're trying to just get whoever was the new hot thing that week when there was only one hot project per week kind of thing. And that was so shocking. Like, it just came on with his auto-tune, and that, I think their price, like their floor price, just dove during that interview, and they had to go apologize in the Discord to be like, no, sorry, we're not that goofy, we just thought it'd be funny. And thank you for bringing that back. Thank you for the nostalgia. That was a good time. Glad to know that you were watching at the time, man. Glad to know you were watching the show. Tell me, because I think you guys had DGen Network at the time. Right. Tell me about that. Yeah. Tell me about that ramp up from like freaking no idea what NFTs are to like, we're going to do our own show. We're going to do our own network, which is awesome. Congrats, by the way, for launching it and surviving, still being around now. Anybody who's still around now, still doing shows is like great work, Yeah.
DGen was a cool one. So, a little bit after I got I bought my Bored Ape on secondary at 0.3. And when I got that,
right,
I joined this sort of like, not official, this unofficial Bored Ape Discord. And when I was there, I actually ran into Bunchu, who I know both of us know, my good friend Joe O'Rourke, who's like, a staple of the NFT community as well. And
right,
we started chatting about business ideas. And we both were like keen to start working in Web3. And the first idea actually, and this is kind of embarrassing, but our first idea we had was we were like, hey, like there's a lot of people with these IP rights. We should be thinking about merch. And we're like, what if we created these merch capsules that are burnable? We had this whole conceptual idea, and we had like multiple meetings about it. But I guess like probably by the third meeting, we looked at each other and we're like, okay, neither of us know anything about fashion, merch, or smart contracts. Like we're going to put together a team and they're going to be like, why are we working with these guys? So we quickly shelved it. And then I ended up saying, you know what, we should do like a decentralized media network. He was doing Mint Condition at the time, which is a podcast I listened to in addition to the First Mint. And I had a background in content creation, reporting, marketing, and was always being put in front of people at my previous jobs. So I was like, maybe we can build something like this together. And I liked writing. And so I went to have a formal meeting with him and his co-host Chamber. And it was kind of funny because they agreed that it was going to be a good idea, I guess, before I got in the call. I treated it like a very formal business meeting. So I brought like a full PowerPoint deck as to why we should do this. And they're just like laughing at me. They're like, it's okay. Like, we just want to do this. We don't need your PowerPoint deck. So, DGen was born as sort of a decentralized media network, and it's since turned into like unintentionally, we created this Discord for like story ideas and stuff and people who wanted to write and get exposure. And it accidentally turned into this really good community of people that we've become like family and friends with. And now we have like this whole robust token gated community. And that's become honestly one of the core offerings of DGen at this point, in addition to the content we create, where, you know, people buy one of those tokens, get in there and become part of the community.
What goes on right now in the community? Like, especially like this day, it's like early mid-January, mid-bear market. Like what's going down in the DGen community?
Yeah, so a few things. So we had a token sale, and we didn't draw any salary from that token sale. Instead, we used the money to hire a guy who gets us like really hard to get allow lists for a community. So that was one thing. We hired a advertising person who can help us get, for anyone who wants to do a show, we want to get, you know, basically get ads to go on that show so that they can start to monetize their platform. And we try to, you know, leaders eat last, so we try to pay last there. And then for just the general members of the community, it's just a place to discuss and figure out like where the next thing is. So example, what's going on exactly today is a bunch of people minted captains because they had the drop on Meme Land from some of our people, you know, months ago when they were below an ETH. And Meme Land ran to, and of course Potatoes ran to like 3 ETH, and they all got captains. So it's actually a pretty happy Discord right now because a ton of people are eating right now on captains.
Yo, hold on, wait. Where do you find somebody to hire to get you onto really hard allow lists? What is this? I don't even know about this. Like, what kind of back alley deal is this? Like, what are you talking about?
So this is the magic of Bunchu. So Bunchu just like knows a guy who works with other communities. So I guess this guy, he goes and works with a bunch of communities, but then he's able to leverage all of those relationships to make it work for everybody. So everybody has different connections in this small world. And sometimes to get one, what we'll do, we'll be completely transparent, but we'll be like, hey, you could come on our shows and talk about it. We'll talk about the fact that you're giving us a allow list for DGen because of this appearance. But sometimes we do that if it's a really desirable one. But yeah, he's just out there hustling and, you know, ensuring that people can get on the really tough to get ones.
Man, that's cool. I want to meet this guy. I want to meet I like that. That's like a layer of like the industry, or at least of the space, that it's like there's a secret guy that only Bunchu knows that like gets you onto these lists. I think that's hilarious.
He's
that's
got
awesome.
like a jacket he opens up with like his allow list, you know, like behind the alley.
Yeah, it's like, don't piss that guy off either, because he'll vanish, you know, and you'll never get another good allow list again. That's awesome, man. Well, that's great. I'm glad to hear DJ Network is popping and people are banking in or eating, as you put it. So very cool. Steve, you've got a background in like brand marketing, storytelling. Tell me about that, man, because obviously that rolls into you being a storyteller yourself. Your Twitter threads are excellent. I'm a huge fan there, and obviously love what you guys are doing at DGen. But tell me about the background pre-NFT.
Yeah, pre-NFT, I have about 15 years of communications and marketing experience. So I started out as a small market TV reporter. Actually, very short period of time while I was looking for that job, I was playing poker online for money. So that was my first job. And then I got the job as a reporter, worked as a reporter for about a year, and hated it. It was miserable covering people's misery, and that's not my jam. I'm an optimist. So Quickly got into an ad agency where I covered basically everything from, consumer products to like, network power solutions, you name it, Dave and Buster's to like, servers. Didn't love that either. And then my real sort of career, I think, was at two places, Progressive Insurance and Nestle. So I worked at Progressive for 15 years. I led public relations, proactive public relations for the company. So really just, handled that. I actually started and led the recruitment marketing department for the company. So really, getting people to work for an insurance company in Cleveland isn't always the easiest. So how do we get our employer brand to get that when we're competing with Google and Facebook? And then I actually led internal communications, was my last job at Progressive that I did for about a year. Actually, when we sent everyone home for COVID, which was challenging and rewarding when you send 40,000 people home for COVID and you lead internal comms.
Oh my God.
So that was my Progressive career. Then I went on to work at Nestle for about a year, and I led public relations for their frozen food brand. So think about DiGiorno, Hot Pockets, Lean Cuisine, Stouffer's, like that sort of stuff. Their innovation brand, so anything coming on that edge, and did that for about a year. And during that time, while working at home, I discovered Web3, and after that, it was sort of no looking back, and I decided to go Web3 full time. I'd say at the beginning of this year about.
Well, congrats, man. Do you have any like frozen food PR like war stories you can share with us? I want to know what that world's like. I don't know if you're under like an NDA or anything like that, but please tell me something. That must be a wild world working for such a huge corp.
So it's interesting. It's fun. It's mostly fun. I mean, the non-fun stuff is exactly what you'd expect. It's not super sexy or interesting. It's just like things like recalls where the wrong thing gets put in the wrong box and you can't have like a gluten option and a gluten-free option. So handling that and trying to come up with the statements about that and things like that, and or there's issues at like a plant. Like those are the war stories, but it's mostly fun. I mean, it's mostly like we for example, we worked with our chefs to make something called a DiGiorno, where it was a DiGiorno pizza combined with a donut. And that ended up on like Jimmy Fallon, right? Or like, those are the fun things. Or like we made merch where it's like you had a insulated lasagna fanny pack to keep your Stouffer's lasagna warm that like Drew Barrymore wore in her show an 8 out of. And that's the fun stuff, like those unpaid like placements in Jimmy Fallon, James Corden. And that's mostly what it was. So it was actually like a ton of fun.
Dude, that's awesome, man. That's so I like designing something that's going to get pushed through like the PR cycle onto that must help you in NFTs as well, right? Because like coming up with this like DiGiorno thing, donut pizza that is gonna like rocket launch onto Jimmy Fallon. Like I feel like that's kind of like some of the strategy in NFTs, right? Is like create kind of like this unique story, unique offering that's then gonna penetrate the noise. Let's call it.
No, 100%. And like, look, I mean, those ideas, they're always a group effort with the team and the agency. Yeah. So to be fair on that, but like at the same time, it does give you a learning when you come into NFTs that it's the unique thing that cuts through the clutter, right? If we came out with Stouffer's and we just did Stouffer's merch that were like socks and shirts, nobody's going to care. If we do an insulated lasagna fanny pack so you can eat your lasagna on the go, that tends to get attention, and that's what people tend to cover. So that uniqueness and how you stand out in the crowd is something that absolutely applies to Web3, which has become totally an attention economy.
Got it. What was like the deciding factor for you to totally leave that behind? And as you say, at the start of 2022, it would be?
Yes,
like
correct.
Yeah. What inspired you to make that leap, and what was that process like?
So this is like a little bit of a slightly longer story, but it's like an important part of my personal journey, which is, when I was in, 6th grade, actually, because I'm 39 years old, I taught myself HTML because I wanted to learn how to build web pages. Nice. I thought it was so magical that I could code something and someone in like Paris, France could go to that website and see what I created and code it into existence. And I had teachers tell me, like, and adults say, this is a waste of time and not every business needs a website and what are you doing with your life? I had that happen. I had the same thing happen with Web 2, right? Facebook I was on in 2004. Twitter I was on in 2009. I thought both platforms had this magical ability, and I hope people tell me, hey, no one cares what you ate for breakfast, waste of time. Even crypto in 2018. It was like, I got into crypto in 2018. And actually, this is a true story, and people can vouch for me. When I was leading recruitment marketing at Progressive, actually, my poor team had to listen to me. They would be like, what are you into right now? And I would whiteboard Bitcoin and Ethereum to them and say, Ethereum's the interesting one because you can build businesses on it, right? And I would say that like way back then. But again, a lot of people, and I didn't have crypto friends at the time, say, this is a giant scam. Why are you in this? And then when the market crashed, I completely left. So Come
Right.
2020, 2021, when I discovered NBA Top Shot, I was like, oh, this is cool because I'm into collectibles. Like my it's just in my lineage. My dad had a big baseball card collection. Like always been into collectibles. And then when I was like, what is this Top Shot? And people said NFTs. And when I looked up what an NFT was, and I saw it's a business built on the Ethereum blockchain, and I know obviously Top Shot's built on Flow, but when I saw that, it was like, wow, it just clicked. And
Yeah.
I sort of knew then I wanted to obsess about it, but by the end of the year, a year in, I was like, I need to not do what I did because this is the thing built on the thing I was obsessed with in 2018, built on the thing I was obsessed with in sixth grade. And I just didn't want to miss that chance and be like 80 years old and be like, why didn't I try this? So I decided, look, the corporate world will probably be there for me if I look for a job when I go back, even if I have to take a step back. So I'm just going to take a shot and try to do this full time.
Dude, that's amazing, man. I need you to rewind to the very start of that whole thing you just said and tell me the first thing that you built with your HTML skills.
Oh, it was the stupidest like website that had like riddles on it. I thought it was cool that my website had a counter. I'm actually
Riddles.
Oh yeah, like it would like have like a riddle or like a fake magic trick where you click through, which is like it was so dumb. And I thought it was cool because I figured out how to embed music. So I write music on piano, and so I hooked my keyboard into my computer. Okay. And I would like create music, and then I would have that music play when people went to my website, and I thought it was like the coolest thing. So I mean, it was honestly like the biggest, dumbest, and I would send my friends there, be like, how cool is this? And I would tell them, like, just keep reloading to make my counter numbers go up. I have like 700 people now. Let's go.
Oh, yeah. Oh, the counter numbers. Yeah, that's a classic, like, 90s website, like, staple. Counter numbers, man. Oh, dude, that's so good. I love that. I want to find this website. I want to find your riddle website. That's a fantastic
buried
story.
Deep in the Wayback Machine.
Very cool. Okay, cool. So I like it. You know, we have similar paths where it's like you're just early. You know, you're using those mediums from like a very early standpoint, knowing that it's going to be something good. How do you feel? Like, how do you feel right now about the NFT scene? Right? Because even I'll give you a bit of context. Like we spent the last 6 months, First Mint. We still talk some strategy on some projects. We still, you know, project leads, all that kind of stuff. But listen, man, this bear market is tough. We've had different experts come on the show. We had like Tasha, who's like a PhD in macroeconomics, tell us like, okay, here's what's really going on. Here's blah, blah, blah. And a lot of really fantastic guests, including yourself. Right now, like, you know, in terms of your interest in the space, people already laughed at you when Ethereum crashed the first time. How do you kind of feel about like where we're at, right, in terms of the NFT space? Obviously, we're in this lull. People got to keep building. Like we know some of those narratives, but Steve, like where are you at emotionally, like in the space?
So I'm excited for a couple of reasons.
Yeah.
One, when I went to Art Basel, I realized what the term "builders build in the bear" means, which I always thought was like this like cliche term or whatever. But then when I was down there, I'm like, oh, everybody who came to Miami is working on a project, is working on, or is invested in the space, or is actually interested versus when I would go to other events, it was, and there's nothing wrong with this, I was doing it too, it would be like, WAGMI, going to the moon, we're all going to be millionaires, we're going to be on yachts, and like, then by the time I'm in Basel, it's like people who are working on sort of picks and shovels, so that's one reason I'm excited, because I think one of the reasons Web 2 and Web 3 people are skeptical of each other is, on Web 2, when people come in, they tend to not hire the right people, and then their projects turn out to not work out really well. In Web 3, when Web 2 people come in to buy, so that was when the Web 2 side built something. When Web 3 people buy, or when Web 2 people come to buy, they tend to just get, you know, rugged, or they don't do their proper research and they end up getting bags unloaded on them. I think when the next wave comes in, we have a proper group of builders right now for that sake. But the other reason I'm excited is that, like, my interest lies purely, or mostly, I should say, in using this technology to better empower consumers and brands and bring them closer together, because I think it's just such a revolutionary technology that can fundamentally make every part of our life better. And so to me, we're moving towards that in a better way than we ever have, with bigger brands coming in and looking at it that way. Because to me, mass adoption is not represented by someone coming in to buy my bags. It's represented by better use of technology that makes everybody's life better. That's been sort of my North Star in the things that I work on. And that also tends to be, you know, the direction we're headed. So I'm excited for the next couple of years, I'd say 3 to 5 years, as we continue to ramp the technology up to make our lives better.
Right. Do you think, like, so does that mean then, Steve, that like, I agree with you, right? Where it's like adoption is going to be almost more quiet than we think. So does that mean is there then another bull run for NFTs? Right? Because that's something I've been wondering. It's like, listen, like you zoom out, you follow the cycles of crypto, you follow like the Bitcoin halving, and easy to form a thesis that it's like, listen, it's cyclical, like every 4 years. So it's just like, just wait until the start of 2025, and here you go. Like there's a lot of little narratives like that you can form, but that's like price speculation for kind of like, the more blue chip coins like ETH and Bitcoin. But for NFTs were something very representative of just this last cycle, previous cycle. There's crypto kitties and there's a few little things like that, but not really quite the same. Let's say there's another cycle, or maybe you have a completely different viewpoint on what that's going to look like. Is NFTs the thing, or are we going to be, or are people going to chase something else, and NFTs will just become the new layer of, authentication and loyalty and all these other applications, but there's no NFTs that pump in the next one. You know what I mean? Like how do you think that's going to shape out?
I think there's a likely scenario that it's just like Web 2. So when you look at Web 2, you have native Web 2 brands like Facebook, like Instagram, that came out and were super successful, like Twitter, TikTok emerging now, right? Those are ones, or should say is established now, right? Those are ones that emerged from Web 2. Now, at the same time, you have large brands like, the Disneys and, Starbucks and whoever in the world who then leverage Web 2 in a way that's authentic to their customers, be it through customer service, putting out content, etc. I think Web 3 is going to play out very much the same. I think we will have a handful of native Web 3 brands that are very successful. And I think a lot of big brands will use Web 3 to empower their consumers. I think we have both. And I think there will be layers of it just like anything else. There are big social media sites and small social media sites, and people interact in different ways. I think the same way, there's going to be the Bored Apes and the Doodles of the world, but then there's also going to be ones that continue to sustain at those sort of like medium and lower levels that are still great communities, but they don't necessarily have that large scale and backing to do it. And so I think it's like anything else. Like we're going to see MySpace, Friendsters, and daily photos out of this particular crop, and we're going to see Facebooks and Instagrams and Twitters out of this crop.
Yeah, it's a good point. I've said for a while that like the killer app of the space is like doesn't exist yet and lies in like a 15-year-old somewhere who will come up with this tech and build, same as Zuckerberg did, like build like a hot or not terrible site at first, and then be like, okay, like I'm still kind of horny, but I need to make something that's less perverse, so I'll make Facebook, which is pretty much the story. But there's going to be some, maybe not exactly the same thing, but there's going to, like, to me, it's like I look to young people for like literally looking at this stuff and being like, okay, but what if we did this with it in like a way that us millennials who we're defined ourselves by being the ones who use social media first, we're going to be like, whoa, like I didn't think of that. It's going to be, I think it's a next gen kind of thing for us. What do you consider, Steve? This is something like I know that probably in the background you probably consult with a lot of NFT brands, normie brands. You're doing a lot of work there and you leveraging your prior expertise. Right now, if somebody approaches you, like let's say what's a cool brand? I'm Ferrari. Or I'm, let's take a Canadian retailer. I'm Tim Hortons, and I'm like, Steve, yes, I've heard that you're an NFT person of sorts. What are you an expert in? What can you help me with? How do you define that? Because this is like, I just want to know from like a personal standpoint, because people, I don't know how to self-describe myself in NFTs. I'm like, I know what I am, but outside of it, I don't know what to say. How do you like identify as an expert in the space to the outsiders?
Yeah, it's weird. I'm very bad at calling myself an expert in anything. I really just consider myself an enthusiast. Like, I think that I'm super excited about tech. I've always been excited about tech. And the reason why, like, I always tell people, I'm not early to tech because I'm smarter than anybody else. I'm early to tech because I just get geeked out about tech, just the same way someone may geek out about any other topic and get really into that topic. I'm also very obsessive. So, like, right. I don't know, like when I was covering sports, I was the sports director at the student TV station at Ohio State. I could tell you the fourth string running backs, high school background and stats, right? I obsess. But as far as the NFT world, I would say for me, if I were calling myself an expert in something, I would say I just understand the dynamics of the space. And I think these unique combinations are what people tend to be missing. So I think I have a unique combination of being very nerdy and degenerate and into this world, but also I have business experience of working with Fortune 500 and multinational CEOs in my normal day job. And I think when you combine those things, it's sort of this unique set of skills where I can say, okay, I can tell you what makes Doodles and Bored Ape pump. And I can tell you about, the end of the trial of the Jimmy the Monkey video, which is, people are looking at and saying like, okay, that's a little sketch, but I can tell you why that works and be comfortable with that. At the same time, I can tell, I'm not comfortable telling a corporate boardroom why a project by Tim Ferriss called Cock Punch works. And I can do it in a way that I'm super, I can authentically be there. So I think my skill set is I understand how to navigate sort of, there's a book I really like by a guy who used to work at Hallmark called Orbiting the Giant Hairball. And it's a really good book about working in sort of the corporate environment and maintaining your personality and yourself. And I think that I can orbit the giant hairball well while also being a degen who does silly things in NFT and, burns NFL all day moments to get other NFL all day moments.
Nice. Okay, dude, like I'm gonna take what you just said and like transcribe it and then just use it when I'm on meeting calls with people and be like, all right, so I'm an enthusiast. That's a fantastic description, man. You're really good at this. You put out a lot of, like I said, fantastic threads, a lot of great, I'm sorry to say, I know it's cringe for some marketing people, a lot of good thought leadership. I will say it's, you're very good at it. Can you tell me, in the space, in your time, 2 years in now, what would you consider to be your best day and your worst day?
Okay, best day is easy. It was the day I signed my book deal because I have wanted to write a book since I was a kid. Okay, and
cool.
So the fact that I signed a book deal with Penguin Publishing, who's one of the largest publishers in the world,
absolutely,
is surreal. Like I almost still don't believe it's real. Like we just turned in our first official draft to our editor after working on it for about I'd say 6 months back and forth, and me and my Harvard Business Review co-author, and that in and of itself was like, probably the best day because it was just, it's like a dream. It's like, I'm writing a book. Like that's amazing. So I think that's probably the best day. Amazing. Worst day is hard to come by. My worst day, actually, I'll go with, again, it's a very personal one. I won't say who the person was, but I was doing a show and a podcast with a person I had become friends with in the space, and we had done about 4 episodes. And unbeknownst to me, he released this project, which turned out to be effectively, it wasn't a rug, but it was really misleading. And I had to make this decision to cancel the podcast I had started that was picking up a lot of steam with a friend. And I'm a big believer that it's easy to make the right decision when things are going well, and the decisions you make when things are going poorly is what your character truly is. And I made the decision to cancel the podcast, and I'd reached out to him privately and said, look, I'm here for you. How can I help you? I want to help you get through this, but I just can't do this in good faith. I didn't have knowledge, and had to put out a Twitter thread effectively saying, I'm canceling my podcast with my friend. This isn't easy. Here's why. Here's what I knew. Here's what others knew. I'm sorry if anybody feels hurt by this in any sort of way. Yeah. And that sucked because it's a very personal thing, and it was a letdown, and you just feel very, very down.
Yeah, that's okay. But good on you for pulling the plug, man. It's not easy to make those decisions. So, like you said, I'm sure that reflects a lot on you to cancel something that you've been working on and you're excited about, based on your morals and what you wanted to do. So, okay, cool. Thanks for sharing. Congrats on the book deal. Tell me more. So this book is going to be, it's a book about NFTs. Is there anything else you can share? You've got the first draft done.
Yeah, totally. So it's with me and my my Harvard Business Review co-author. So I co-authored the first Harvard Business Review article about NFTs in November 2021 with my friend Scott Commoners, who is a Harvard Business School professor. And we, it was called How NFTs Create Value. And it was pretty well accepted in the business world. And so as a logical add-on to that, we worked with an editor in Penguin Publishing, and we are working on a book to do just that, which is teach businesses and people who maybe are skeptical of Web3 how to understand this technology, explain what it is, explain how to do it. And then we actually developed a framework, which the goal is, so the same way Gary Vaynerchuk's jab, 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 right hook is an applicable framework about social media that still holds up today, even if the examples are dated, or Jonah Berger, who wrote a great book called Contagious. He's a UPenn professor. The framework holds up even if the examples go dated. For us, that's the goal. Is we want to put together a framework of building a proper sort of Web3 strategy, NFT strategy for brands, whether you're Starbucks or the local coffee shop, to help utilize this, or if you're a consumer, and just sort of like continue to drive mass adoption into this world. And again, mass adoption being using the technology in a way that empowers everybody. So I think our goal is like, hopefully the book can, for me, I do DGen network stuff because you're talking to the people on the ground in NFTs. The book is hoping to be talking to people maybe at an academic level, and the goal is to connect those two worlds and sort of like help bring NFTs and Web3 to the masses in a way that makes everybody's lives better.
Dude, I love it. That's awesome, man. When can we expect it to come out?
That's a good question. It depends on the editing process and supply chain stuff. So probably not for another like year, maybe even 18 months, which I think will still be early, even though it seems like forever away.
That might be a good time for it to come out, honestly. You know what I mean? Like that might be a good time where kind of things maybe on the upswing at that point.
Yeah, that's what we're thinking is hopefully that's the case. And yeah, again, supply chain, physical books, but yeah, it's definitely exciting. It's like the most exciting thing I've ever worked on.
How long is the book? Like how many pages are we talking?
Currently, I think the draft we turned in, because the thing about it is when you turn in a draft in Word, I think every 1 page in Word is about 2 pages. So I would estimate the current draft being at about 150 to 160 pages, but could be ratcheted back through the editing process or up just depending on how it goes. But I think it's about 150 pages would be my guess.
Dude, I've always wondered this about like writing a book. Like, how do you write that much? You know what I mean? Because that's so far beyond writing like 500,000 word article or even a longer 2,000 word piece. Like you are so far beyond. Like it is your first book. Tell me about that, because I've often thought about that, and I'm like, I don't know how I could write that much and it be like concise in any kind of way.
So it's weird. It was like we're so alike, because I was like, okay, we're writing a book. Okay, we're agreeing to make like a book. They're like, I think like they were saying like 90-page minimum or something. And I'm like, there's no way we can write 90 pages. But like, once you start actually breaking it down, there's a lot, especially on this topic, a lot of it was just writing things we're passionate about. So here's the thing. A large part of it is like, we start off by explaining sort of what NFTs are and give people sort of a breakdown on that sort of thing. But then within our framework, for each piece of the framework, we have to give like case studies and examples to help demonstrate it, realizing that non-native Web3 people are going to see this and say, I don't understand what this means. So using examples in Web3 as well as conceptual examples that maybe don't even exist yet. Like, what if this brand did this? And the more you do that, the more you realize as you're going through explaining it, you're like, this is getting kind of long. And it was weird. Like, I felt like we weren't writing that much. And then I looked at it one day and I kind of sent a DM to Scott. I'm like, Scott, we've got like 100 pages here. Like, when did that happen? And it's just almost like this long academic paper that you just continue building upon. And again, it might end up shortened, it might end up longer, but it almost like snuck up on me where we were just writing our thoughts out, and it felt like there's not a ton of fat to trim off it, which is why I'm as surprised as you. I still don't know exactly how it happened.
Right. Were you a writer before?
Yeah, I've always loved writing.
Okay. What have you written in the past?
Mostly, I think articles are something that I've always been really, really enjoyed. I've always had a blog of some sort, literally starting in sixth grade. I mean, in theory, I would write thoughts on there, and that was a blog. So it's like,
so you had your Riddle website, and you had your blog as well.
Oh yeah, I would just write down my silly thoughts in sixth grade, my emo sixth grade thoughts, down to like
live journal.
In like I actually had I wonder if I could find this WordPress page. Probably in about 2006, I had a WordPress where I proposed a college football playoff that is almost identical to the one that they're doing now.
The new one,
and then like had one that I think is still a better iteration that I would go back to where it involved conference champions. So I blogged about sports. I actually worked for a now defunct blog for a while. I co-founded a blog called LeBrownstown, which, of course, when you live in Cleveland and you tie yourself to a athlete, when that athlete leaves, it's not great. So the name doesn't exactly hold up. But I used to write for there, and I actually covered Cavs games, met Shaq. I covered, college football games for Ohio State. So I wrote there. And then just in general, like as a PR person, you're always writing press releases, blog posts, content.
Yeah,
so
naturally.
I've just always been a writer in that way.
Dude, that's awesome, man. That's so good. I love that. I love anything where people like you and I during the 90s and mid 2000s were like, I wrote this thing once that is what they came up with later. Like it was my idea. You know, like I love any I have so many like that I'm like, I had this idea basically for Facebook before there was Facebook. You know what I mean? Like just this way to anyway, I love that kind of stuff, man. That's so good. Okay, let's talk. Well, I still have you. Let's talk about some actual like NFT alpha stuff, because I feel like you're one of my go-tos, like in my secret like Twitter list, where I'm like, when I'm trying to keep up with like what's going on with like the main NFT scene, I'm like, I want to see what Steve's talking about. Doodles, is it coming to Flow?
So I thought so. So here's what I think about Doodles, and
Ooh.
I have no like special inside information, although I do really like the team over there, and I'm
Yeah.
you know, I've become friendly with some of them. But I'll say this,
Yeah.
like, so this is no inside information, but I suspected they were coming to Flow based on what Jordan said, Poopy, like their, you know, at their NFT NYC, which is they said, I prefer layer ones. We want to move proof of stake for Doodles too. Okay, so when they said that, I'm like, Flow, logical, makes sense. Yeah. And then Doodles 2 got delayed, and in their recent announcement, they said that Doodles 2 got delayed, and they sort of teased at technological differences, which makes me wonder, are they not going to Flow? Are they going to actually pivot to like a Polygon who's just been racking up win after win after win? Or are they going somewhere else? I still think Flow, if I were handicapping it, if I was a betting man, which I actually am, I would handicap and say Flow is probably the top, Polygon a fast follow, and then I don't know where else they would go, but Flow feels like I was positive that it was Flow, and now I'm not so sure.
It seemed that way, and I saw something last night. Like I came home late last night, so I don't know if this is kind of like fever dream kind of thing, but it's like I could swear I saw something where Rohem retweeted, not Poopy. Who's the other guy? Jordan.
There's like, Evan, Poopy, and Julian.
Julian, that's it. No, Julian. Wait, Julian's the CEO.
Julian's the CEO. One more piece before you say this real quick. One more other piece.
Yeah.
On Julian, that's the other thing I forgot to say why I thought they were going to Flow. So just dot connecting.
Yeah.
Julian came from Billboard. Billboard worked with Unblocked to do their NFT.
Yes.
Unblocked built on Flow.
On Flow, yes, totally. I saw like Roham retweeted like one of them just tweeted Doodles 2 and Roham retweeted it, which is like super random for Roham to like retweet at this point in time if there's still not some kind of connection. But maybe they're still deciding and Roham is like trying to win points or something like that. Like I don't know. If you were them, would you go to Flow or Polygon?
Oof. Honestly,
or just total pivot, go to Immutable. Just
No. I actually think this is like such a wishy-washy, crappy answer. I actually think both are excellent options. I think Flow, I mean, you look at what Top Shot and All Day have built on Flow, and Cryptoys for that matter have built on Flow. Yeah. Unbelievable. You look at what Polygon's building with like Starbucks Odyssey and some of their big brands, and now like Utes and moving over there. Incredible. So I actually think both teams are, it just depends on their goal. If they want to connect Doodles to big brands, Polygon's the play, because Ryan, the CEO over there, we actually had him on the show on Tuesday, and he said,
I love that.
I'm not shy about introducing Disney to Starbucks to Utes to everybody. So I think because of that, I would say, you know, like if they want to work with big brands, Polygon's the place. But Flow is just, I mean, they have an incredible product. If you just reskin NBA Top Shot for like Doodles 2, that's all.
Yeah, just don't mint 50 million Doodles 2 and you're good.
Yeah, no.
That's just don't do that. Go more of that all day.
That one hurts. I am down
like,
horrendously right now.
Take a number, man. That's everybody. But you know what's funny? Actually, I want to ask you this, Steve, as somebody who was in Top Shot early, but you built your brand not talking about Top Shot or too many of the sports products. You talk about everything else. You zoom out. Everything's down. You go back a year, whatever was around a year ago, down horrendously. Like literally almost every single project, every single notable project, including Top Shot, but including Apes and even Ethereum. For most other projects, their fan base is like, it's not their fault. You know what I mean? They're like, listen, macro, let's survive. But Top Shot, everyone's like, it's your fucking fault, Top Shot, that you're down. You know what I mean? Like, and I wonder, and I'm still like, I still can't really like sift through the weeds of like, is it their fault or is it that things just went down as well? What do you think as somebody who kind of like toes the line? You're kind of across all projects, but you don't go on Twitter and talk about it too much like the rest, like the people in our corner do. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a combination of things. I think that look, here's the thing about Web3. This is literally the first time in human history that we have startups being built in public for everybody to see, and every one of their moves is scrutinized, right? If you had looked at Uber a couple of years into building Uber before it became sort of like this mass product adoption, you would think Uber, you'd say it was a rug, you say it was terrible, all these other things. And I think that's part of the issue that they deal with there. I think, yes, they've made some errors, right? The oversupply, because there was such a demand ramp up in early 2021, they oversupplied. I don't doubt that. I think they've tried to correct that with things like locking and burning. But there's also the combination with the down market. So do I think they didn't see the market as well? For sure. I think you see NFL all day, by the way, correcting a lot of those practices. They're not putting as much supply forward. They are encouraging burning to get more moments. They are making you work a little harder to do that. And whether that's right or wrong, or works long term, I still think that they're showing that there's lessons learned. But it's hard to turn that ship around with as much as they've done. So I do think it's their fault, but I think people could show them a little bit of grace that it's a startup being built completely in public and they're trying to figure it out as they go.
Dude, absolutely. Okay, great answer. Two more like alpha questions for you, and then we'll wrap up. Apes just announced they're decoupling from NFT NYC. They're not going to be there. You're happy about it. I see your Ape Fest poster in the back there. Is that what are your thoughts there? What are your thoughts on the current state of apes? Because there's a general, they're the industry leaders. There's a general kind of mixed feelings where it's like other side is supposed to launch. We've gotten like a demo and a trailer. What's next? Ape Fest decoupling. Maybe they'll host it in Vegas or Miami or a better venue sometime in the summer. Where are you at? Apes, your ape is your identity on Twitter. It has been. You've been consistent with that pretty much through your whole NFT career. Where are you at with it?
So I'll say this. I want to tee up by saying I've probably been more critical. I'm more critical of my own bags than any other and I do it in a way that I mean it. Like I want to give praise when I see it necessary.
As you should be. You should be. Absolutely. It's your own like investment, right? So yeah.
Yeah, like I am, it's cool because, in Web3, you are the brand, right? That's one of the cool parts about being in Web3. Now, that being said, because I have been critical of apes more than anybody else, because I get accused of being a bag pumper sometimes. I'm like, when they drop mutants, I did an article called Bored Ape Yacht Club blew it. So I'm not afraid to criticize them. However, I will say I am feel extremely good about the state of apes. Reason being, look, they have $450 million in funding. So they're going to get a chance to swing the bat at whatever they want to do. It doesn't guarantee success, but it means that they're probably going to have a large chance to do whatever they want to do, number one. Number two, they're one of the few NFT brands to permeate pop culture and consistently hold sort of this higher status in the general zeitgeist, right? Celebrities hold it. The floor never tanks below a certain price. It's not all about floor, but it never tanks below a certain price. There's always sort of that resistance there that happens. Number three, people are like waiting for other side. It takes a long time to build a really good game. And they just hired the COO from Activision. So, let's not discount that somebody who's coming from the gaming world with a lot of experience in building things is coming in. And as far as, you talk about the decoupling of Ape Fest, that's brilliant because my long-term vision for Apes as a club is that I think with Apes and Mutants, I think we need to bifurcate the different parts of Yuga in Other Side and Apes, right? With Apes and Mutants, you have a club membership, okay? With Other Side, you have a game. Now, while they do intertwine and work together, that club membership, my long-term vision from Apes since the very first Ape Fest, and we looked at each other, like myself and my coffee with Captain co-host Chris, we looked at each other in the Uber and we're like, they could do Bonnaroo. They could make their own music festival where there's a VIP experience or free entry for Apes and Mutants or whatever that looks like in tiered, and then they sell to the public, they use their connections to run it, and they could run a festival all day long. The vendor village, Chris just talked about this morning. I thought this was a brilliant idea. It's part of the utility. Make that vendor village ape-based businesses. So Bored and Hungry's out there. All Ape Water, all those things are out there. So you encourage the building of the IP and sort of the building of the brand. I think that's on one side. I don't know if Other Side will succeed, but I'm honestly, there are people who think the success of Yuga's depend on Other Side, and I just disagree. I think as a culture brand, I think that they're going to be, I think they have Doodles, you look at these ones with these larger fundings, the Moonbird and Proof, they all have different strong brands, and they all are working towards things where ultimately they have the funding to do what they want to do. So I think for Apes, I feel good that they're going to get the chance to swing the bat. Whether they're successful or not, I don't know. It's going to be a fun ride regardless.
Awesome. Okay, great answer. Best Discord that you're in that isn't DJ Network?
Ooh, that isn't DJ Network. Let me look at my Discords.
How many Discords are you in?
Oh, I couldn't
Like,
even.
did you pay for more than 100?
I've culled down to less than 100.
Okay.
Geez, DGen Network is like my home base. This is like one that a lot of people aren't familiar with. My buddy Dez has a project called Goats, which was the first project to do burning deflationary mechanism where you combine
I know.
PFPs.
We had him on the show when he was doing his Top Shot charts and stuff like that.
Yeah, he's brilliant.
Way before Goats. Yeah.
So Dez, I think is running one of my favorite. Him and the On-Chain Monkey Discord are probably the two. On-Chain Monkey, great vibes, always vibes up in that Discord. And then Goats is just every person who's new to NFTs. I say go buy a goat and go hang out in this Discord, and you will learn everything you need and be Sherpa'd into this world. So those are probably my two.
Right on. Nice. Wow. Shout out Goats, man. That's great. I haven't thought about them in a while. And On-Chain Monkeys agree. Good vibes. I was a holder, but they didn't make my culling list of the great culling of summer 2022. No,
Sometimes
nothing
you
personal.
Gotta sell. Sometimes you
So
gotta
I
sell.
just gotta I can't, like, everything goes to zero. I can't walk away with nothing. So it's just like, goodbye monkeys. Okay, last part of the show, Steve. You listen to the show way in the past, and we still do the same thing at the end of the show, which is we play a game called Would You Rather, which is just kind of ask you a couple questions based largely on the personal answers that you've given me so far. Okay, so we'll start with a really simple one. Would you rather hold your ape to zero or hold all other NFTs you have to zero?
Oof.
It's like a rather. It's like I know you're an optimist. It's like an opposite optimist question.
That's a great question. Probably hold all other NFTs. I love my ape. It's my identity, but I just have created so many friendships and relationships in so many communities, and I feel like I could do that still within the ape and Yuki ecosystem, even if I didn't have my ape.
Got it. Okay. Good answer. That was a warm up question. By the way.
That was tough. That's a tough warm up.
Well, it only gets worse from here. Would you rather that your full-time job is still being a local TV reporter or still making Riddle HTML websites?
Oh, Riddle HTML websites. That's a softball. That's easy. Yeah. TV reporter was working 3 a.m. to noon. Miserable.
Got it. Okay. Would you rather, last one, would you rather sell NFTs of Nestle frozen food products or try and make your book about NFTs into a book games style universe like Gary Vee did?
Oh, gross. And look, good for Gary Vee. He did just fine on that. I love Gary. That was a bad reaction because I do really love Gary quite a bit, and VCon's the best conference I've ever been to. But I would probably say I would rather sell Nestle NFTs. We may do something NFT wise with the book, but it's not going to be like book games.
It's not going to be order 2,000 of them, and you'll get all the NFTs, and you can cancel your order if you want. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Great. That's awesome. Steve, thanks so much for coming on the show, man. This is awesome.
Thanks for having me. Seriously, it is an absolute honor to be on, and I'm grateful you asked me. I really appreciate it.
Well, dude, I appreciate that, and I'm a fan, so, keep doing what you're doing. And, dude, I want to say I also appreciate the energy you brought to the show. I really like that, because sometimes you hit some guests where it's just like, the energy's not there, but it's like, I love your intensity, and it's something I really appreciate.
No, you're a great interviewer, and this is just like a fun Zoom call with a friend. This was awesome.
Oh,